All right, good evening. Let's call to order this meeting of the Montara Water and Sanitary District Board of Directors. It's May 21st, 2015. It is 7:37. Could we have a roll call, please?
Legislator Carter.
Present.
Director Boyd.
Here.
Director Wilson.
What's his name? Here.
Sorry. Dr. Huber. Director Huber.
Here.
Let me know, we're expecting Director Harvey shortly, but we're going to go ahead and get rolling. I don't think I've got a president statement tonight. Do we have any oral comments from the board or the audience on anything that is not on the agenda? Hearing none.
Yeah, no, we don't.
Moving on
All right,
to new business item 1, review and possible action concerning leak adjustment for 385 7th Street.
Okay, so we received a request to consider an adjustment to the water bill and the sewer service charge for 385 7th Street due to a leak. The way we approach a refund for the sewer side is that we look back possibly 5 years, and in this case this works, to establish an average for the wet weather consumption. So wet weather consumption is the December and February bill. We look at trying to establish an average. This comes out at 23 HCF for the past 5 years. This year the usage was high due to it was actually 2 leaks, and so we see a wet weather consumption going through the meter of 50 HCF. So we establish an excessive usage of 27 HCF. And now we have 2 different models that allow us to issue a refund. And the first model essentially says that if it is determined that the water did not enter the sewer system, then we would assess the customer at the average of 23 HCF. If it's not determined that the water did not enter the sewer system, so if the water entered the sewer system, then we would divide the excessive usage by 3, and that would in this case be 9 HCF. So we would assess the customer then for 23 plus 9. So there would be still a significant reduction in the sewer service charge assessment, but in this case it would be 9 HCF higher. The leak was essentially the majority of the leak appears to be an ice maker, and we have a statement that the water that leaked from the ice maker did not enter the sewer system. So we have a statement from the construction company that prepared the leak. There was also a toilet leak at the same time. That's why staff recommendation is to authorize a reduction of the wet weather usage for 385 7th Street to 32 HCF. Just as a side note, we still have to assess, we still have to determine what the sewer service charge for the next fiscal year is, but if we look at this year's sewer service charge, and I believe we're at $38, around $38 per HCF, so this would be a refund of $707 roughly, if we think in today's sewer service charge. That's staff presentation.
So my only question is, I don't sound flippant, so how many gallons of water are we talking about? Just approximately.
27 times 748.
So lots of gallons.
Lots of gallons. And I
my-
forgot to mention that we have actually the homeowner in the audience.
So my question to the homeowner,
Can
and
answer.
being somewhat serious, where did that water go in the ice maker? I mean, I know there's only like a little catch there, like a half a pint or something. So if it didn't go into our collection system, where did it go? Do we know?
We do. In fact, let me, and I comments, I believe you may have also have a copy of this, but I'd like to
Yes,
share that
the
as well,
email.
because it will,
There's a letter from
it
the...
will
Oh, this I
outline,
have.
it will
I know
outline
we have a
where
letter
the
from the
water
company to
went.
say where it was.
Yes, this is, but it's
It's in our
We
packet.
have it in the packet.
All right, then I must have missed it.
May I have that copy back then, if you don't mind? If you will have a copy, I'd just like to.
I'm sorry, once he's touched it.
Sorry.
No, my hands are soiled.
I'll give you I'll trade you a cookie.
We
for
have
a
them.
copy.
Oh, what, you're sold. That's fine. We're
Okay,
good.
thank you. Made them myself.
So the water went under the house.
The water went under the house and the contract, I had the contractor come because I thought I was gonna need a new flooring in the kitchen due to the
No, that's
leak
fine.
from the
I
ice
just
maker.
missed
But
that,
anyway,
so.
it was very muddy under the house once we
That's-
got under there and evidence of a leak and
No,
he
no, you don't
felt
have
it
to
been
spend an
happening for
hour
a couple
explaining. I
weeks.
just missed that part of the thing, that's all. Okay.
happened to be happening at the same time as the toilet leak, which was during that horrible storm that we were having. So I had two issues at the same time going on.
So,
Yeah.
Hans, did we send out any kind of notice that indicated that we thought we may have a leak?
That's a good question. I believe we did.
I did receive a notice,
Yes.
and that, yes, and as soon as I received that notice, someone came out and, identified the problems and immediately took care of it.
Right, and
I move that we authorize a reduction of the wet weather usage for 3857 7th Street to 832 HCF based on last year's service charge for a refund of $707.94.
so we wouldn't issue $707. We would simply reduce the sewer service charge to 32 HCF.
Okay.
Going forward, if we would wait until we establish the sewer service charge, the refund would be definitely, or would probably
Oh, okay.
be higher if we
Well,
increase the sewer
I was
service charge.
just reading the recommendation, so we'll just stop, authorize a reduction of the wet weather usage for 385 7th Street to 32 HCF for, what was the time period? December and February of 14-15.
Thank you.
Are we adjusting just the sewer side or water and sewer?
The water side is prepared. We are ready to issue a refund of $53.57 to the customer. But we're not asking for authorization from the board to do that. We have authorization to issue a
Okay.
refund.
Okay.
Do you have a second?
I do have a second.
Okay.
And I have one quick correction just for the audience, and that is that in the letter, it talks about the property taxes going up due to leaks. And that's actually our sewer service charge, which is on your property tax bill, but it's not technically your property taxes.
Okay.
That's something we do as a convenience for the district to keep our in-house charges down. So the county simply attaches it to your bill. But that's just a clarification. Because I think,
So I'd like to take the opportunity to, one, thank you for coming and working with staff. I appreciate that. I'll just take the opportunity to mention, since the toilet was involved, there is a rebate for upgrading to low-flow toilets, and this has been a topic of discussion here at the board at the last meeting. We'll continue to talk about it because it has been great for the people who've done it.
I just did.
But back in the days of old, the low-flow toilets were terrible and they didn't work, and you had to flush about 18 times. And those days are gone, and there's some really good ones out there now. And we offer rebates, not only on toilets, but there are rebates available through PG&E for certain high-efficiency appliances, such as washing machines. And we just had a washing machine die, and so I'll be filling out the paperwork to get that rebate. Trust me, it's a good rebate.
Do board members get that too?
yes.
Well, anyone in the district, and to be clear, for washing
Board members have to live in the district,
there is a
therefore
rebate from the district side and a rebate from the PG&E side, so.
I will be filling out both rebate forms.
Thank you for those rebates. I just received one myself.
Excellent. Thank you for doing that. Yes.
Where are these rebate forms available?
Online, and actually, we're going to put a new version up next week because we just increased the rebate amount.
I'm buying another new toilet.
should go
We
shopping
actually,
together.
we actually doubled the amount, so it's from $50 to $100.
This is a new toilet's
Per
gonna be more
toilet.
expensive.
Well, and I put in my first low-flow toilet before we did a rebate program, and part of me was a little sad about that, but it saved us so much water.
And
Just
money.
So much water. Yeah.
I won't ask you what part of you is sad.
That part that wanted the rebate, I really wanted the rebate. All right, so it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Clarification, I had a conversation with Julian on 5/8. He said that I usually use 23 units during November and December, and that I used 50 units
Yes,
in 2014.
yes.
So this would be 27 units over. And he thought that the charge per unit was $35 to $36, and perhaps it's $38 from what I'm
I
hearing.
think it's around $38.
Okay.
Yes.
So I was going to ask for mercy of the board and ask for that to be reduced to 1/3 based on not being sure how much was toilet, how much was ice maker, and I'm not really sure what the conclusion is, and I'm not really sure if I have my numbers even right.
Okay,
but
so we're establishing the average at 23 HCF,
And HCF, I'm sorry,
and
stands for?
that's just a unit that we use. It's 748 gallons of
Gotcha,
water.
okay, that part I
100
saw.
cubic, HCF is 100 cubic feet.
Got it. Okay.
And so now, if you subtract 23 from the 50 that are showing up on the meter, then you know we essentially establish the excessive usage at 27.
That's what I learned
And
from
we
Julie.
divide that by 3.
Okay,
So we will assess you for the 23 average
Mhm.
plus 9 units.
thank you all for that, I appreciate that. I know, Scott, that, you know, you've had a very similar situation and had to pay the full.
Oh,
So
I
really
hate the full
appreciate-
amount, yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate everyone's support with that, so thank you.
I've forgotten that I'd told you this story. It left an impression on me, so I've told it several
I
times.
think you've told it to everyone.
Over at least 5 times.
What helped me remember that was back in the day. I don't think our board was quite as kind and gentle because I brought it up at a board meeting and there was raucous laughter. So
Oh, wow.
no, it was no, it was the principle. If we have to treat it, we have to charge for it. So. All right. Any further discussion? Any? So all
We haven't voted on it.
We
No, not yet.
have, we
I was
have a
about to call
vote,
a vote.
we have a motion and a second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. So.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Now, we do have lots of entertaining items on the agenda, so please.
Please stay, the
please stay.
cookies will stay.
I think the basketball game might be more prevalent.
Well, we're going to try to move through this as quickly as we
Well, that's
can.
tonight.
Now I'm having a cookie.
There's a basketball game?
This-
Thank you.
Yeah, there's nothing like actuarials to make people excited for the next item.
We're gonna go so fast, it's gonna.
Cheers.
So
Wanna
we're,
go out for a drink?
item 2, new business, receive actuarial evaluation for the PARS pension plan. And before I hand this over to Clemens, I have to explain what PARS is because we don't use acronyms without explaining.
I have it written out here.
The Public Agency Retirement System. And
Yes.
actually, for anyone who's interested in the long-term viability of this agency, one of the things to think about is what are we doing to make sure that this is a good place to work? So this is actually a very interesting item.
And what are we doing to make sure that our ratepayers can pay for it to be a good place to work?
Thanks.
So, okay, staff was directed to examine procuring a pension program through PARS. The benefit parameters include a defined benefit plan for all full-time employees based on a 2% at 62 full formula and at least 5 years of district service. Also, a final compensation is based on the highest average consecutive 36 months or 3 years of compensation with the district. Parameters also include an employee contribution equal to at least half of the ongoing normal cost of the benefit. So we asked Bartel Associates to prepare the actuarial evaluation, and Mary Beth Redding is here tonight to give us the presentation. And we we prepared this for a slideshow, a PowerPoint presentation with a projector, so I'm probably going to ask two of our directors to move or close their eyes.
No, I'll be
Because
happy to
we're gonna
move too, because
Turn this unit on and then hand it over to Mary Beth.
for those of us who need to think about things, can we get copies of this presentation?
Yes.
I have it.
Okay.
I can make it available.
Is it just warming up?
It's warming up.
Okay.
Miss Wilson? All the way?
So I should probably say one more thing in background about PARS. PARS is not a government agency themselves. They are a private company that, or a corporation, I'm not quite sure what the structure is, except that they're not governmental, but their business is providing pension plans and investment opportunities for government agencies. So they're basically an alternative to CalPERS, and they have a lot more flexibility than CalPERS. You can, CalPERS is fairly inflexible about what they'll let you do. And so this I think gives the district a lot more opportunity to have a pension plan that looks like what they want. So we were asked to do an actuarial evaluation of the plan so that the district would be able to evaluate what this would cost, both in the short term and the long term. We've done that valuation, and this is still a preliminary valuation because there is one piece of information we don't know yet, but it should give you enough information to make a decision. So I'm going to start by going through very briefly some definitions of terms I'm going to talk about during this presentation. First is something called present value of benefits, which we've calculated. Basically what we do is we build a model that looks at what are the benefit provisions of the plan, who are the people who are covered, the current employees, what do we assume their future lives are going to be like, how long do we think they're going to work here, what are their pay increases going to be, and then once they retire, how long are they going to live and collect the pension. And then from that we build a series of benefit payments that people will receive in the future, and then we discount them back to today, assuming a rate of return that invested assets will earn. And the number we get is present value of benefits. That's the present value of all the benefits people are ever going to get. But that's not how much money, so that's sort of what the district would be obligating itself to by installing this pension plan. But all that money isn't owed right now. In fact, right now, your accrued liability, which relates to past service, is zero because nobody's getting any credit for service in the past. All that, the present value of benefits will be funded in the future year by year, and that year by year payment in the future is called normal cost. And the normal cost is designed to pay the present value of benefits by the time people retire so that there will be enough funding. So keep those definitions in mind. I'll tell you a little bit about the plan. As Clemens said, it covers retirement at age 62 with 5 years of service. The benefit formula is 2% times your final 3 years pay times service. And this only service that counts is service after July 1st, 2015, so it does not go backwards. And since this, under the California PEPRA law, the Public Employees Pension Reform Act, we can only count pay over $117,000. Okay, for all new employees. So that's
Up to.
Up to, sorry.
I was gonna say,
Not
wow.
over. Wow. Up to. Thank you.
Are you hiring?
Okay, so pay will be limited. There are, should somebody die after 5 years of district service, there's a benefit to a spouse. There is a limited benefit for people who terminate before retirement or become disabled. Employees will pay half of the normal cost of the plan. And we've calculated that as a percentage of their pay up to this pay limit. And each time we do an actuarial evaluation, we'll look at the cost of the plan and, if necessary, adjust the employee contributions so that they always do pay half of the normal cost going forward. There is a provision for buying back previous service. we have not calculated that cost because employees would do it voluntarily and only if they feel it's worth it. But the cost would be set so that it's really the same to the district either way. You know, the district would not be subsidizing it, the employees would be paying the whole cost. And there is a cost of living increase after retirement. And the benefit formula, the 2% of final pay time service, is a benefit for the employee's lifetime only. Should they wish to provide something to their spouse after their death, they'll pay for it in terms of a reduced pension. So this is I don't want to say bare bones, but it is not nearly as generous as many of the CalPERS pensions that you see.
Wait, that statement you just made,
Yes.
is that not as generous as the CalPERS
It's-
for new employees or the old CalPERS?
It's
Could you be more
not
specific?
as generous by far as most of the old CalPERS. It's fairly comparable to the new ones. There's some of the tweaks are not there.
So it's comparable to the new ones?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
And also that 2% at the 62, that is a sort of a fix, that the Pension Reform Act requires it to be at that? Or it
Yeah.
can't be any more
It
generous?
can't be more generous than that.
Okay.
So it doesn't include the number of years of service? It's minimum 5 years, but it doesn't
No, it
calculate in?
multiplies, so you'll take 2% times the years of service times the final pay.
Oh, that's benefit service, got it.
But there's no, you cannot retire at 57 and have to work until you're
But it's not 2% of all years of service, it's 2% of the past
After.
3.
Only, the pay is averaged over the past 3.
Right.
Okay, so you can't like work a lot of overtime in your last year.
Okay.
Okay, and you only count service after now. We don't go back to any service you had before the account.
So the bottom line is, when you retire, you get the pay is based on the top 3 salary years. 2% times the number of years you've done, so it's 2 times number of years, and then the baseline numbers of top 3 years of salary. That's how it
Right.
Top 3 years or the last 3 years?
Well, it's
High
usually
three.
the last 3, but
With
it
a
is the
cap of
top 3.
117.
Yes.
But if you if somehow you tank in your last year, but it is a top 3.
Some people, for example, would choose to work, reduce their hours for a year before retirement, maybe, and this would sort of protect them.
Who holds the annuity?
Who holds the money? PARS.
Okay, so they're an
will
insurance
manage
company.
it. They are like an investment management
Okay, good.
company. So they hold the money, and an actuarial firm like us would do valuations every year to determine whether or not they're holding enough money. That's the plan design. Right now, we have 7 employees. This is sort of the statistics of the people. They do have, on average, almost 6 years of past district service, but remember, that's not going to count for benefits. The actuarial assumptions that go into our model, most of the assumptions, we are using a CalPERS model because they've done a lot of studies about how California employees behave in terms of how long they work and things like that. And obviously with 7 employees, we can't get a really good statistical study of the district's employees. The one thing that is not here is we don't know what investment fund will be selected at PARS. Normally, we would choose a discount rate, which is the expected rate of return on assets, by looking at what fund was selected. Is it a conservative fund or an aggressive fund? Not that PARS provides really aggressive funds. They're all kind of in the moderate to conservative range, but within that range, there's difference. So because we don't know exactly what fund is going to be selected, we chose discount rates of 6% per year, 6.5% and 7%, to kind of give you an idea of the range of the costs that you might see. And just for comparison, CalPERS doesn't invest their money more aggressively, and they use a 7.5% discount rate. So we're being on the conservative side. We're using a method called entry-age normal, which is the most common and standard cost method. And I think the only other thing to say on this slide is that we've assumed that all the expenses of administering this plan will be paid by the district and not out of plan assets, because the plan has no assets. And here's the results of our evaluation. The first line shows the present value of benefits. So this is a value now of all the benefits we expect all the employees will ever earn if they all work until retirement. So if you assumed you could invest and earn 7% a year, the value of those benefits would be about $729,000. It covers all 7 people. If you think the money will only earn 6% a year, the value is more like $990,000. Right now, there is no actuarial accrued liability because all of this is considered to be benefits that are going to be earned in the future because nobody's getting credit for past service. And so it's all going to be funded by the normal cost, which is the annual payment every year for the rest of people's working career. And right now that varies between $37,500 and $46,000. Now remember, I don't know, it probably doesn't seem low to you, it seems a little bit low to me, but that's going to be paid for the employee's career. It's going to go up with their payroll, but the employees are paying half. This number is only the employer's share. So the employees are funding the other half of that. And that's how it'll get to $700,000 or $900,000.
So we go back to that slide,
Yes.
please. So if the employees are paying half
Yes,
and the districts is paying half,
yes.
so how do you get from, like the middle one, 6.5%, how do you get from 42,000 to 849?
So you've got like 80,000
Is
going
that
in the
interest?
first year, and then that will grow with interest at 6.5%. And the next year, that'll actually go up about 3 or 4%, so it'll be 85,000.
So the 849 is at retirement?
That's
Well, at what
that's
point,
the present.
time point?
That's the present value now.
What does
So,
that mean, present value now?
In today's, that's how much you need to put in the bank now. If you had to fund this all at once, right now, today, and you could earn 6.5%, you would need $849,000. But instead, you're going to put in 41,862 times 2 this year. Next year, you're going to put in 45,000 times 2. The next year, you're going to put in 50,000 times 2.
I think the way
And
it is
over
that-
people's
So
lifetime.
what you're saying in English is that this is the amount of money, if you had it fully funded by the time they retired, you got 849,000. That would pay for the retirement costs for that employee. To get there, you're paying 41,000 times 2 every year to make that amount whole. I think that's what
And the
that's.
41,000 is actually going up every year.
So the 849 is per employee?
No, total for all 7.
Okay, all right.
Are you going to cover the risks?
Am I going to cover the risks of?
The risk that you don't earn that
Who's that
rate?
talking?
What the track record of the investment agency is for the last several years, what their interest rate is?
Okay, so.
And what the present value would be at, say, the 30-year T-bill rate right now?
So the bottom line is every year, these numbers are reviewed, and we would adjust our payment based on whether the investments are meeting goal or
That's why I'm
not.
bringing it up.
Yeah,
Because
so-
you have a risk that you're underwriting more than you expect. If the 30-year T-bill rate is 2.5% right now, which is a riskless investment, I'm guessing what the
There won't be
rate
on the T-bill.
is. That's the other issue. You
Yeah.
could lose principal. if they're
You
not.
could. So the way you protect yourself is like you and I do with our own 401k plans, in that we look at how we're doing every year when we make our adjustments. So every year they're going to give us an evaluation as to are we fully funded, are we not fully funded, and then we have to, as a board, based on those numbers, make an adjustment on how we fund.
My point is simply that the board is taking on a liability here, and I'm wondering if you're going to present the risk. The difference between recent past earnings in this investment agency and your projection.
So the PARS, I can't really speak to PARS because I'm not a PARS representative, but I will tell you that they do have an array of funds, and I think their track record is pretty good. Are you
Yeah.
more for averaging in the long run rates that are similar to these?
Yeah, PARS rates, and the reason Mary Beth has used those evaluations, which are, very conservative in comparison to PERS. PERS is at 7.5 and has been for decades, as far as I recall. What PARS says, let's be more conservative between 6 and 7 and 6.5, and then the vehicles that they have for consideration have met those goals over the span of time.
And when the board selects which fund they're going to go into, I think they'll be looking very carefully at what do we think it really will earn long-term, and if we think it's only going to earn 6, we're not going to say 7, we're going to say 6.
I think the gentleman's questions, and I'm sorry I forgot your name.
Greg.
Greg, are very good. If I could get between 6 and 7% right now, I'd be pretty happy. And so I am curious, as to how we can, what kind of risk we're putting on this district, particularly given the particularly low interest rates right now. It's because at the beginning of this, if we're getting less than those interest rates, we're in a hole for a very, very long time. And
But you're not investing in T-bills, that's the difference.
and I know we're not investing in T-bills, but I have yet to see where the investments are. And again, that is my concern. It was a concern I raised last time as well, and I'd like to know more. Maybe we should have a representative of PARS come and talk to us about their investment strategies.
And Director, we're meeting with PARS next Wednesday.
Okay.
And at which point in time, we're going to get into more of those details, exactly what you're asking, okay, what other funds, and then we will be presenting that.
But why don't we have that person come and talk to our board and our public, rather than having it filtered?
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, I'm
Wait,
okay with that, except you have to understand historically, on historical data, these retirement plans, 401ks and everything, this is a 401k model for all practical purposes. The actuaries are what you're doing, this is very, very over 30 years. Is it risk-free? Nothing's risk-free. But on the other hand, if you are looking at how this works, it's unlike what, our district is mandated by law that can't do anything but T-bills, so essentially our investments are below inflation. So, and that's just because of the way we're regulated. But if you look at 401k plans or any retirement plan, particularly those that are now co-funded by the employer-employee, these actuaries, this 6% is very, very conservative. Is it risk-free? No, but is it wild and out of fact? The answer is particular. We're talking 30-year histories on this kind of stuff. So I don't know if we need that. The ultimate authority in this plan is that the board is going to actually be making these decisions based on the kind of risk that they want to do as a subgroup.
Right. Tonight's meeting is to hear on the actuarial report, the selection of the funds, the assessment of fund performance and risk based on past performance, and the structure of PARS. PARS.org, you can do some research there. But tonight is to hear from our actuary about what this proposal means for us in terms of how it might go based on assumptions that are spelled out here. What it's actually going to do is going to be very dependent on the decisions that we make. But I want to get through our presentation tonight.
Well,
We have much more discussion to do before we put anything actually in place.
I appreciate that, and I'm sure, I know that you, like me, appreciate Greg's questions, and so I'm
Absolutely.
just trying to be able to follow up on his questions at a future meeting.
Absolutely.
And I would invite Greg to be here. I can't promise Judy's cookies, but I can always get some cookies, even if they're just
Right.
Oreos.
No, I'm in no way meaning to, in any way, dismiss the concerns about the risk and how it's actually going to work. But tonight, let me just remind everybody, tonight's purpose is to go through the actuarial evaluation and learn from our actuary about the model.
Yes. So, you can do extensive modeling. PARS can give you statistics about how likely you are, you can calculate these investment parameters of how likely you are to earn any particular rate and what the correlation coefficients are and all this sort of stuff. And you can do stochastic modeling and show how likely it is that you're going to earn whatever return it is. The problem, and it might be something the board would want to do, but if you really do a good study like that, it costs a lot of money, and it doesn't cost any less money to do it for 7 people, and it's probably less reliable to do it for a small plan. And you could easily spend as much money as you're going to contribute to the plan in a year in the next study. So it somehow, you know, it might be that the board decides that they really want to understand this risk and do it, but it might be also that you do a little less sophisticated, just maybe a discussion of the risk. Because the rate is never guaranteed, but as you said, we'll do evaluation every year. We'll look at where are the assets, where are the liabilities of the plan. If there is a shortfall, the contribution is then adjusted in the future. And sometimes it goes the other way. If you selected your discount rate well, there should be over sometimes and under sometimes, and it should even out in the long run. But it is a long run position, and in any 1 year, it's less money.
You said that it would go up every year, that employer normal cost?
That is set to stay the same proportion of pay. You put the last slide up.
Okay.
So that right now is set, if we look at the middle column, 6.5%, it's 7.76% of payroll.
Yeah.
So it's set to stay 7.76 of payroll, 7.76% of payroll. So as people get raises over their career, the dollar contribution will go up, the percentage should stay the same.
Assuming that there's no additional cost because we underperformed.
Yeah, that would be separate. Or no reduction because you overperformed. So this slide shows, the bottom line is the employer cost as a percent of pay, and that's designed to stay that same percentage of payroll every year. The line above is the employee contribution rate. That's the percentage of pay that the employees are going to pay to fund this. It's a little bit different because for them we calculated it only on pay up to the limit. The dollar amount should be close, but there's also rounding rules in the legislation about how you have to round things, and so those percentages don't look particularly close, but really the employees are paying half of the cost and the employers paying half the cost. That is the end of my presentation. I'll ask for questions. Oh, we had some.
Is the spreadsheet you use to generate these numbers proprietary, or can you have a copy?
It's not a spreadsheet. It's actually really complicated piece of software that we lease from a company called Wintech. It's used by most of the firms, and because we lease it, we can't share it.
For employees, that there's also a vesting period, right?
There is a vesting period. There will, if anybody leaves before 5 years of district service, including service in the past,
Right.
all they'll get back is their contributions.
Okay, and so would that significantly change the numbers if you change the vesting period, let's say from 5 years to, let's just round it off, say 10 years, because of the fact that you really want to reward employees for sticking around, not for, working for 5 years then leaving?
Typically what happens is, and I can't tell without looking at your people exactly,
Yeah.
but the way these plans are set up is that they are worth very little until very close to retirement age.
Okay.
If you plotted the benefit people earn, it's like nothing, and then all of a sudden it skyrockets as you get close to 62. So typically what will happen is changing that vesting period from 5 to 10 is, it's still very little benefit in that period, so you haven't saved much money.
Right. And in turn that there's not a significant inducement for them to stay as a result of having a longer vesting period.
Typically not.
Okay.
Isn't there a statutory minimum or maximum vesting period?
There is in private sector plans. It's a lot less clear in public sector plans. It is very typical for public sector plans to only return contributions if you don't make it to retirement age. The alternative is to pay the larger of the return of contributions or the formula benefit. But And what I'm thinking is that probably for most people for 10 years, the contributions back are going to be worth more. Anyways.
No, it was my recollection from having had a retirement plan for private business. The
Yeah,
government
5 years.
kept mucking around with what the vesting period was.
Can I ask you a question? Could you go over one more time? If
Sure.
an employee leaves before the 5 years, what are the benefits
If they
again?
leave before 5 years, the only thing they're going to get back is the first line in termination. They will get their money back with 3% interest.
Okay.
So it's a nominal amount of interest and most likely less than the fund is actually.
So they only get, they get only their money plus 3%. Why is it 3%?
I'm not sure it was set that way in the plan design. I think it's meant to be some recognition that there was interest,
But-
but less than the fund is likely.
But if
to
their
earn.
money that they've given is collecting interest in the market, shouldn't they be getting that interest that the plan gets?
You're saying if they're getting 7%, shouldn't they get 7%?
Should they get 7%?
Most plans set it at a fixed rate because it goes back to the old days when you couldn't calculate it. I'm not quite sure.
Disincentive, kind of.
It's a little bit of disincentive.
I mean, I guess to his
But the
question-
long and
It's the way-
short
it's
of
the way
it
the
is it's
plan design
mandated by
was
law,
set.
so there's not.
Well,
something to
and
rely
it's
on.
it's also a hedge against interest rates that are actually lower than that, right?
No, but I guess the question that's
That's
out
why you're
there,
not crediting
are we
actual.
restricted to that 3% or could we just give them whatever's been earned during that period of time?
I am not sure how much flexibility PERS has with that.
Can you check that for us?
We can check.
If employee leaves in after 2 years, I'd like to see if we have a flexibility
Yeah.
there. Can you check that?
I mean, it might be in the PEPRA law too.
Okay,
I
let's
think
check
I
that.
don't think that
It is?
this credit is.
Okay, we'll find out.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any further questions?
Okay, so let's say we
Apparently, yes.
instituted this plan. Okay, so now we basically assume a certain level of risk that we had before.
Yes.
Okay, and we go out 10 years and every time that whatever amounts are due, we pay, so we're current. 10 years out, we hit as a district a financial rough spot. Okay, do we have the ability then to, as long as we're current, to stop the plan?
So this is an iffy area.
Dinner.
It goes back to case law, so I'm not probably the right person to give you a legal answer, but the traditional answer in California is this is now a vested right that employees have had, and you cannot stop the plan accruals unless, am I correct, unless you give them something of equal value? But you should consider that for your current employees, once you put this plan in, it will be in for the rest of their lives,
Their working lives.
their working lives.
But
You
I
could-
think your flexibility is that you can put a stop for future
You can
employees.
put stop for future employees.
But you're stuck, you are committing to your current employee base.
But unless we get a constitutional amendment, it's not like a private sector plan where you can say, okay, enough of this, you're not earning any more pension benefits.
Okay.
So it's a commitment.
For the current employees,
Right.
not the new hires.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. So next item of business, review and possible action concerning adoption of water use restrictions to limit outdoor irrigation to twice per week.
Okay. As everybody knows, the State Water Resources Control Board is charged with the implementation of the governor's executive order to cut water use in California by 25%. And they have now released the final regulations. They just came out when we had our May 7 meeting. And the final regulations for this requirement to reduce the overall water use in California by 25% are essentially looking at urban water users and categorizing urban water users by per capita usage, and then allocating a percentage amount for these urban water users. We are not an urban water supplier. We are a small water system, so there's different regulations that are in fact for small water suppliers. The regulations call for either the implementation of a 25% reduction in water use compared to 2013, or to implement a restriction to outdoor irrigation to twice per week. So we brought this to the board at the May 7 meeting and had a discussion about what this district should do. And so we were instructed to limit the outdoor irrigation in the district to twice per week. And legal counsel prepared an ordinance that does exactly that. And the way we've structured this is so that outdoor irrigation will be allowed in the district only on Mondays and Fridays.
Does this mean that I can't, every now, carry out my little jug and water the plants? Or is this for like sprinklers or drip irrigation system?
This is for potable water use outdoors,
So if I fill up a gallon jug,
then it's not potable.
Well-
You're,
it is, I'm filling it up at the tap.
But if you use your bathtub water or your laundry
that's
water,
true.
That's
A
what-
bucket in the shower collects
Yeah, I've done that.
a surprising amount of water.
Yep.
It's- yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
so no problem with the bucket in the shower, any day of the week. So the recommendation is to adopt the ordinance declaring a water shortage emergency and prohibiting certain water usage.
Catherine?
Mondays and Fridays. I would suggest maybe we do, it seems to me that, you know, I'd rather go with, you know, people on even numbered houses can at least water once a week on the weekend, because that's when people tend to be home.
That is true, however, we have the highest water usage on weekends anyways. If there's a water use restriction in place in the district, it would make sense to essentially stay away from Saturdays and Sundays as much as possible,
Okay.
because that simply evens out the water flow.
Data mining, but
Fine
I have to say that's very discriminatory to the working workforce, and I think if the goal is to reduce water use, that's what your intent. I mean, you have higher use in the weekend, but the ultimate goal is total use, not per se daily use. And I just think that I think you have to do it in a way that everyone has equal access to the use of their water outside, and by restricting weekends, it does put a burden on individuals that are working. So I would recommend that we put something out that equalizes the burden across the 7 days. And originally, when you and I talked about it, you thought that, you know, why don't we just mandate that individuals identify what those 2 days are and go that route? But if we have to do an artificial time, I think we have to equalize the burden. And the weekend is not an equalizing of the burden.
Well, let's see, do we have to determine a time when this can be done? Or can we simply allow everybody in the district to pick 2 days?
Well, to choose their own 2 days,
Yes.
that's really would create an enforcement problem.
But how are you going to enforce it now?
Yeah, I mean, you could do that. In fact, one of the earlier drafts I had was basically just to limit it to 2 days. You know, when it comes to enforcement, the assumption is with every law it's going to be obeyed, but that isn't always the case. In a situation like this, detection of violations is usually made by someone living in the area. the neighbor calling and so forth. So I suppose you could say that if someone saw their neighbor water 3 days in a row, it's pretty obvious they're going to be over the limit. But the question is how effective is an open-ended kind of restriction like that. And that's why a manager had recommended the 2 specific days.
The background for the recommendation, by the way, is that many other agencies are following exactly this model.
Okay, so is it the way that our system is set up and our storage capacities and stuff like that, in an operational sense, having it, let's say, on a Saturday instead of a Friday, Clemens, how significantly would that affect the operation?
Well, we generally see the highest demands on the weekends, but
Right.
we right now don't have any irrigation limitations, and we don't have problems to supply the water.
Right.
I mean, in fact, this has nothing to do with a water supply shortage in this district.
Yeah.
This is not the case. We can provide the water to irrigate on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah.
The reason why I recommended to go with Mondays and Fridays is really simply because I assume even folks that are work have probably a chance to come home on a Friday night and irrigate. You should probably, or leave, go earlier on a Monday morning out and irrigate, and those are the times when you should irrigate. Quite frankly, the determining specific days is counterproductive. It's been proven that this really just reminds folks to water. So, in the model, I mean, if you now add even numbers, odd numbers, I mean, we have actually had a discussion about this, but it makes it very complicated. Even numbers, odd numbers, one side of the street, the other side of the street. I mean, we want this as simple as possible.
What if you said any 2 days, but it needs to be before 10 a.m. or after 5 p.m.? Take it off peak, take it into the cooler parts of the day.
The Dave said it would be hard to enforce.
I understand that, but I actually don't worry about my community doing this. For one, if I do this, Greg will rat me out. And 2, I mean, we need to do something to comply with the regulations. But I don't think we need to. How many people know people who are watering more than twice a week?
Well,
wait, it's my turn. I had my hand up.
Well, hang on. As soon as I'm done, I'll be happy to recognize you in a moment.
Okay, I thought you were through because you started talking.
that's Jim.
Well,
I thought you were through. I apologize. But keep talking.
So that's my proposal, that we say early in the day, late in the day, pick your 2 days. Okay.
Is there a reason you couldn't adopt strategy A and change it to strategy B later after evidence of curtailment?
It's better if we pick, that we've always got that option. We should try to pick something that we think we can stick with.
Fine,
because otherwise we send confusing messages.
But you start it, a year later you can change it.
In a year, we won't have a drought.
Jim.
Thank you. You know something? I water Monday mornings. I get up at 5:30. I take my bucket out and water my hydrangeas. Monday, Friday, what different? You're going to be. This is a special thing. If you have a drip system, you turn it on a little bit Monday or Friday. You could. I mean, I think we should keep it simple. I like the plan the way it is.
All right, I have one more question.
Kathy.
My recommendation would be to keep it short and simple.
Yeah.
What about for people?
Which is the way it's prepared right now.
What about for people on wells? We're not going to be enforcing the county's problem, are we? And how are we going to handle it when people report people on wells as watering way too much, which has been going on for years?
Fair enough. I wonder if we might not wrap up our situation first and then perhaps...
Okay, so this does not apply to people in the urban area.
I'm not saying that.
I have heard actually enforcement here quite a bit, and simply putting an ordinance in place doesn't mean that we have to enforce, right? I mean,
It's like the speed limit.
You know, there's also the element of peer pressure. There's no secret, there's been a drought, and emergency declarations and the governor's proclamation is well known. So that this is very consistent with that. And again, as I say, peer pressure. If a neighbor, and I've seen that, I'm sure you have too, a neighbor's letting water go down the driveway or simply, obviously, overdoing it, they're usually going to be reminded of the conditions of the circumstances. So hopefully there won't be any need for official enforcement.
Yeah.
But it's there.
Just for, as a legal sense, if we just made it 2 days a week, just said you can only water 2 days a week, but if I didn't say anything more, that would we legally be within meeting what we have to do by the state? We just said you can only water 2 days a week, don't say anything more about the days or anything like that, and that we'd meet the requirements of the state by doing it that way.
If you let the owner, or the consumer, choose the 2 days, which is what you're basically saying, it'd be very difficult to enforce.
Well, there's two parts of the question. The first question, it doesn't meet the mandate of the state. I think the answer is yes. But second, there's two, the enforcement is a separate issue, but the question was, does just saying keep it to 2 days with the mandate of the state? And I believe it does. They just say you just have to restrict it to 2 days. They don't tell you you have to pick the days. They just say you have to mandate 2 days a week.
Well,
I'm talking about the legal mandate for the state.
The state regulation says 2 days.
Okay.
Yeah, and I suspect that I feel this way. I get the sense that Dwight and Scott, so forth, and Jim do too. Oh, I think all of us do. We want to present this in a way that is not punitive because the people in this district have done an exemplary job over the years in water conservation. So that this is both to meet the requirements of the state, but also to, in a very sort of subtle way, to acknowledge those efforts, in doing conservation. So we're basically, in essence, saying, Scout's honor to just abide by it.
Greg.
As a homeowner, my schedule is not always predictable, and so I would appreciate the flexibility to be able to do 2 days 1 week and a different 2 days. I don't even remember to water every week, frankly.
I take to heart Clement's comment about by picking days we remind people to water. The last thing we want to do is drive up water use. I'm willing to drop off. I'm willing to drop off my suggestion about early or late in the day, but I like the idea. I still like the idea of just changing the wording to irrigated no more than 2 days of each week.
And with that in mind, I make that motion because I absolutely support that. And just remember, families that have children that are going 24/7, the only time they're going to have any kind of opportunity to get to the yard is on the weekend. So to your point, I so move that motion.
I'll second.
Yeah.
okay, so that means you adopt the ordinance with that change in place.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. That basically parrots the regulation from the state.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And just with the understanding that if this becomes an enforcement issue, we'll hear about it and we'll consider further.
Yeah.
Right? But if we don't, it's great. All right, it's an ordinance. Let's do a roll call vote.
Director Slater Carter,
Yes.
Director Harvey.
Aye.
Director Boyd.
Aye.
Director Wilson.
Aye.
Director Huber.
Yes.
2 yeses, 3 ayes. I do believe that makes the motion carry. Thank you very much. Last new business item, review and possible action concerning appointment of district representative to participate in San Mateo County Sea Level Rise Vulnerability Assessment Study.
So we were contacted by Supervisor Pine who essentially asked us to participate in the assessment of the impacts of sea level rise and major storm events, and that is the focus is particularly the the northern section of San Mateo coastline north of Half Moon Bay. And they've scheduled a kickoff meeting.
Sea level isn't going to rise south of Half Moon Bay?
Well, it's going to have a different impact than in the northern section, because
There's all kinds of cliffs out.
probably, but that's a good question for June 5. Why they separate this out in northern and southern sections, but the county now asked us to identify key staff personnel. We don't have a problem doing that, but they want also an elected official that is identified to participate in the process. So the recommendation is to appoint a board representative to participate in the San Mateo County Sea Level Rise Vulnerability Study.
Let me mention that I attended the first such meeting that they had. It was a very interesting meeting, and I don't believe my work schedule is going to make it possible for me to go, but I heartily recommend that any board member that can do, because it's very interesting stuff.
In reading that, does that mean that we can send 3 individuals and they can be any combination of elected officials, senior staff member, staff person? I'm a little unclear about that.
No, they definitely...
It's one of each. That's what they were asking
one of
for.
each. I mean, in this case, we could say, I probably could take care of the assets in the special district as well. But I'm happy to send our superintendent there as well.
Okay. So this is a vote for...
Well, I think we can just do this through just an agreement. Who's itching to do this? I mean, I would definitely want to go, but I don't.
May I make a suggestion that we designate one board member with a bunch of alternates?
Yep, I think it's a great idea.
So the first question is who can and want? I think we all had one time in the same boat. Yeah, I just don't have flexibility.
I can do it, but if you want to do it, Bill.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind taking it on.
It's fine.
So it sounds to me like what we're saying is Bill would be our designate with an alternate of Catherine, followed by Dwight, myself, and Jim.
I don't retire until July, so.
Well, the sea level's not actually scheduled to rise significantly
Until
before
August.
July.
Oh, June.
So, all right. So that's our understanding. That's
I can't be alternate until July.
Hearing no objection. That's our decision.
August.
All right.
So Jim, I go the first one, and you go the second.
Okay.
Reports. Sewer Authority Minnesota.
I tell you what, let's just put the county sea level rise study on our reports. We can make our reports take forever. But I think it would be interesting for folks in the district to know what's going on. And
Sure. Let's put that on the agenda going forward. But only after meetings. All right, Sewer Authority Midcoast.
So since this last meeting, we haven't had a meeting since we were met here, but we're in the process of looking for an interim general manager. We hired last week a engineer who will start in 3 weeks to help us out. In the meantime, until we get an interim manager, Clemens is acting as serving as the interim manager, and we're in the process of interviewing for the interim general manager right now. Anything else, Scott?
We also have we're putting out, of course, a search for the permanent general manager.
Exactly. Thank you.
All right. Midcoast Council.
well, I have a question about Sam.
Yes.
Where's the budget?
Where's the budget?
The budget is up on Tuesday to be approved by the SAM board one more time. The addendum hasn't been approved by the board for distribution, and depending on the decision on Tuesday, it may go out in a with the addendum now approved for distribution to the member agencies.
Okay, because we were supposed to have something about that. I had been expecting it tonight, and we have given your absence in June and my absence in June, we've got to have the budget on June 4, our budget. So it seems to me it's going to be difficult to plan. Well, maybe if Sam manages to get their budget done on Tuesday night.
So what we also have is a process with the other member agencies where, so we had a managers meeting with all 3 member agency managers, and we agreed essentially to a process at which the budget remains as it was drafted by the prior general manager, and the member agency managers will request a review of that budget and potentially bringing forward a revised budget after 6 months, or in other words, I was going to ask the SAM board to authorize the spending of funds according to the existing budget for 6 months, and recommend that a new manager takes a look at the budget. There are going to be also some other recommendations that go along with that from the member agency managers.
So I guess it should point out that we're actually counting very heavily on the agency managers to help out during this time, and weighing in on the budget and finding common ground is definitely something that we've asked them to do, and they are quite clearly doing.
That's a great idea.
Good, thank you.
Midcoast Community Council.
I haven't been following it too closely. I will say Big Wave was approved 5-0 at the Board of Supervisors.
Again?
Again. It is appealable to the Coastal Commission for those who sent a letter or spoke at any point in the process recently. So that's all that I know right now for the Mid-Coast Council. They just canceled their last meeting, so I haven't.
Okay.
Highway 1, maybe not Highway 1.
There's the Highway 1 thing is sort of putzing along, and I should follow up on that, I guess.
All right, CSDA report.
Our last meeting was May 5th. Our next meeting is in August. I have had a request to have, for our August meeting, to discuss the LAFCO budget, which is around $400,000, and so we will be discussing the LAFCO budget. Martha Poyatos will be coming to our meeting and to discuss it, as well as some questions from board members. So that's nothing to report until August.
Okay, CCWD and CCWD committee report.
Yeah, that I contacted Ken Coverdale about a meeting with them, and he declined the offer, and so that now we're sort of back to that I'll contact Glenn Reynolds about getting together, because Glenn Reynolds, I believe, is now the president.
Okay. Attorney's report.
At the request of the general manager, I appeared at the Board of Supervisors hearing on the Big Wave project this week. I did have occasion to respond to comment from a member of the public questioning the provision of water to the project. The supervisor did approve the project, and the time is now running for any appeal from that decision.
Okay. Director's reports.
Yes, Catherine and I met with the outreach committee because with the drought and that, it's basically trying to formulate what kind of message do we want to present to the our ratepayers. And so we had that, we actually did that today. And should I summarize it? Do you want to summarize it?
It was we had a lot of good ideas. Essentially, we need to look at the budget to see what kind of money we've got. Because we could do a whole video production with PCTV, but we decided we didn't have the money for that. So we're thinking about updating our website and some other things.
But the general tone, the message itself that what both of us feel is important is that, and it sort of goes along what I just said about the restriction on watering 2 days a week. The first idea that we want to really reinforce is that we have a real appreciation for the efforts that everybody in the district did to this point. And so that, yes, there'll be those restrictions, but in general, the tone that we want to get across is the idea that they've been very responsible in the past. We would expect and encourage them to continue to be responsible if they can manage to conserve more water using basically their resourcefulness and intelligence. We're very supportive of that. And the other thing is we really don't know how the long this drought is going to last and what the long-term ramifications of it are. So that's another impetus for not letting our guard down, to maintain that focus on conservation. And then I think that we'll do our part to manage the district effectively, but that because of the fact that water consumption will be down, that there will probably be some water rate increases just simply because of the fact to cover our overhead as a result of the fact we're going to have diminished water sales.
Not to mention inflation.
Yeah. And then the other one is that as far as what they should and shouldn't do, it would be focused on sort of helpful hints, a message maybe about paying special attention to outdoor irrigation and automatic systems, and then with links to just general information that those in the district can use to understand the issues better.
And the other is to remind folks, our biggest requests for sewer refunds is from people whose underground irrigation systems have sprung a leak. And so they tend to have these leaks going on for very long periods without knowing it. And so the recommendation we're going to put out during the drought is, well, automated watering systems are great water savers. They can also cost you quite a bit if they fail, and you may want to have it on a specific valve in your yard that you can turn off when you're not using it.
Yeah, or something along those lines. But anyway, that's the things that we were thinking about naturally before. And we really sort of just talked in general about different ideas how you could disseminate that information. Catherine, you took some notes on that, but the idea is just to sort of get the ball rolling so that we have something more concrete that we can report to the board about as far as when it comes time to put out a message.
Yeah, we have a long list of possibilities, so we will discuss this further.
General Manager's report.
Tying right into this, I'm happy to see that the outreach committee is becoming active and willing to take on some work. We have prepared a very brief, short newsletter that will be sent out next week. It's at the printers right now, with a focus on exactly what the outreach committee discussed today. Essentially drought and the impact to us. Also, the decision tonight fits still perfect in with the newsletter. The ordinance, the change in the ordinance fits with the newsletter right now. We also have a little piece about the water exploration that the district's undertaking in it, as well as a little sewer reminder. So it's a short two-pager that we put together and send out, and hopefully this will be one of many to come. If they're short and sweet, I think we can get those out fairly easy. And if, for example, the outreach committee has some further suggestions, then we can send one out in a month or so, again, or 2 months.
And then this is in the newsletter format, correct?
Yes.
And then also it'll be posted on the website.
Yes.
And it'll be a front page thing because it's something that's a sort of vital interest right now.
Yes, it's under news, exactly, under the news tab on the website, yes.
Future agendas, we noted the sea level rise item will be on there. I hear no objection. We're adjourned at 8:52. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Good.
Scott, thank you.
Please.
I meant about it.
Okay.
We haven't dealt with that. We haven't dealt with that yet. I did, and I got.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start carrying this. Allergies have gotten me or something.
So was that Glenlivet?
It was Pinot Grigio, actually.
So what am I looking for?
I need a password and.
Oh,
So
I don't have your passwords.
I know, I don't either.
Thanks for coming.
okay.
Well, you
Yeah,
can me all day long. I don't
I'll
have
do a
it.
few more to have appropriate context.
I can change it.
Here.
You do?
You're using my email service.
Like me, you interrupt me.
You're not using
Is that
the
more prepared on?
I don't know.
Talk to ourselves.
Here's what I get when I go on it.
Well, I did study up. I read that report and I got his point about how the fixed costs are a large percentage. If you decrease the use, you have to raise the rate.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
Remember, when you look at it beyond the report.
We actually,
I think it's the other way around.
I told them we put all the pipe up to the main.
Okay.
So.
Let me show you what comes out.
I don't know.
So, Greg, it was a pleasure to have you. If your work
So-
schedule is variable.
I would have volunteered
He's a
to go
sailor.
to that sea level rise.
He's a sailor. You know this, right?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I founded the Energy Environment
That happened.
program at the MIT Club in Northern California. I had Felicia Marcus
Either on a
last week. I
different
hosted
section
her,
or
giving, she
completely else.
chair of the
Are-
water report.
Are you a member of the yacht club?
Not this one, over in Brisbane.
About
Anyways,
too bad.
Felicia Marcus came and spoke on water, and I've had a water event every 5 years.
her property.
I sail off of Brisbane.
Yeah, you're
Every
on
once in a
the
while,
I mean,
we'll
we're
sail.
talking about 1 or 2 shovels.
Okay,
worth of gravel.
here's what I get when I go to, where do I
Apparently
go?
made its way into the culvert.
That's what I get.
It was,
Alberic's a good.
it's the 3 quarters full before we started. And
Bill,
it's
what's his
now
name?
only a
Don't you have the
quarter.
same designer that my Pearson's?
There.
Everything we can to please her.
Layers of fiber.
Oh, there's no way to guess that.
What else
She
is
didn't.
I know.
models do they make of an
With the exception of the water that I gave her for free.
I don't want it to be impossible to guess. I never get it.
Lowercase.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So it's,
There you go.
so it's a
Done.
Thank
Really
you.
well made.
Heavy glass.
They're next door.
Good for high winds.
Who I've had a good relationship with. And also, here's the rest of the story.
No, you clarify without any of the public back and forth that we normally do.
Greg, if I can get
What else we get?
your email.
It's like, Oscar
This is
feeling.
very important.
Cookies, taking cookies.
The question is, what is for capacity here and what's capacity to take in any kind of cognitive information it means?
I can't believe I'm still awake. I had trouble. I was literally putting my head down on my desk today. I was in a meeting where people had to step out, they came out
Someone like this on the desk.
You show her, I was gonna get her mad.
with my boss.
Among other things, I
I was like,
think,
I'm so tired.
I'm on the committee.
You know, we started
And
out,
I'd
of
like
course,
to
with
get
I need another
citizens
vacation.
with some
Like you said,
approach
right.
Close to
Don't-
I don't know if I have that. I do have some finance and mathematical talent.
But I'm glad we
would say
said
I'm political.
midnight.
I am, however, the odds on my getting 4 new toilets went up a lot
Yeah.
based on what I heard tonight.
Yeah.
You're saying I can fill out a form and somebody's gonna give me $100 cash, some combination of PGE and the district?
For
Oh,
the
no, you said
toilet,
buy the toilets and bring the receipt in.
I will.
for the toilet, it's from
Yeah.
us.
so there was definitely.
How can we afford to do that?
How can we not afford to do that?
Well, we just
Do-
went
do-
through the
do you
thing,
know-
if you
do you know-
decrease the water